In 2007, I discovered I was almost dead with stage 4 cancer. Half the people as sick as me at diagnosis were dead in 24 weeks. And instead, 6 months later, I had beaten the disease. I didn't just sit back and say, boy, I hope I'm a lucky one. Some people think that patients who speak up are anti-science. That's not the point here. If everything worth knowing was already in medical journals, then we could fire all the researchers. I then turned to the patient community, and I heard back from 16 people who had survived this treatment and were not dead.
Wow.
And so they had been through the side effects. I want to alter the culture of healthcare so that both patients and doctors realize there can be a partnership here.
Welcome to the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. Your guide on this journey is Amy Silvas. If you're ready for the secrets to an abundant life, hit that subscribe button now, and let's get started.
Secrets to Abundant Living community, welcome to another incredible episode. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Amy Silvas. I am the founder and principal of Silvas Capital. And boy, I have to admit, I'm a little starstruck. Sorry, Dave, to embarrass you. I'm a little starstruck by our guest today. We have an incredible guest who has a lot of meaning for me and has done incredible things for many people, Dave deBronkhart. And I am going to turn it over to him to introduce himself because I don't think I can do it justice. And we're going to let the conversation flow from here.
Actually, I want to know briefly,
yes,
what is it that me and my stuff and what I do had any impact on you?
Yes. This could be a whole 30-minute conversation, but I'll be brief. For those who don't know, I live with cystic fibrosis. I'm 43 years old, and CF is a rare disease. Only about 30 to 40,000 people in the United States have it. And it is an illness in which you get to see your doctors maybe for an hour, 3 to 5 times a year, but the rest of the disease management is all on us. And there is a large burden of care, of self-care at home. So as an adult, as a young person, figuring out how I could possibly be able to manage this disease and get the best outcomes I possibly could, I felt like I needed to find a way to empower myself. And so our mutual friend, Aaron Moore, who I adore, sent me this link by this gentleman named Patient Dave for this TED Talk. And so many of the things I kind of was dealing with in my brain of how to have agency over my health and co-create care with my providers. And quite frankly, I was kind of told to kind of back off by several physicians, hey, let the doctors do their thing. And here you were on stage talking about, no, we can own our data. We can talk to other patients. We can be empowered. I get goosebumps just talking about it because suddenly this disease that was supposed to kill me in my 20s, I felt I had some agency and ability to really dictate the outcome of my care. So you really gave voice to, I think, something that was really stirring in my soul as I navigated living with CF.
So good. So I want to come back to this word agency because it doesn't mean what you and I are talking about to most people, but it is sort of one of the hot new concepts in the world of empowerment. But first things first, in medicine, there's a concept called patient empowerment.
Yes.
And it turns out it has an enormous range of meanings to different people. To some people, and I'm not exaggerating at all, it means listening to people when they say they would like the lights turned off. All right. Now, to them, that's empowering patients as opposed to telling them to, look, we're doing the best we can, or sorry, we need the lights on, so shut up.
Yes.
And things like that, right? Where real patient empowerment over a course of years, so in 2007, I discovered I was almost dead with stage 4 cancer. My median survival, half the people as sick as me at diagnosis were dead in 24 weeks. And instead, 6 months later, I had beaten the disease. and survived. And it was a combination of, I was lucky that the only treatment available worked on me because it didn't work on most people. But I didn't just sit back and say, boy, I hope I'm a lucky one. All right. I could tell a lot more story about the cancer, but for our purposes, what this comes down to is, do you know what's important to you? And are you willing to take action, right, to move toward it, which today we're starting to call agency, having the willingness and the skills to move toward what's important to you. In my case, I was fortunate that my primary physician, who's now famous, Dr. Danny Sands, happened to know of a good online patient community that he directed me to. And from them, I got useful information that my oncologist thinks helped me survive. Now, what's really important there, some people think that patients who speak up are anti-physician or anti-medicine or anti-science. That's not the point here. The point is that sometimes there are things you can do that don't exist in the medical literature. All right. Not all knowledge. I mean, I ended up giving speeches about all this. I've done more than 700 speeches in 26 countries. And one of the lines I used in the earlier years when a bunch of us were evangelizing this around the world was, look, if everything worth knowing was already in medical journals, then we could fire all the researchers.
That's a good one.
And well, it's true. And so sometimes people will say, look, I know what you're talking about, but there's no evidence for that. And that statement should always be followed with the word yet. There's no evidence for that yet, because the scientists are doing research. So in my case, I learned from the patient community that for one thing, I mean, in the CF community, there is an enormous value to just being around other people who know what it's like, right? As opposed to feeling like I'm on my own.
Absolutely.
I mean, I never knew anybody who'd ever had kidney cancer. Right. So just for somebody else to say, I mean, one of the first things they said after I introduced myself was, welcome to the club nobody wants to belong to. We know what it's like. But another hugely important thing, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, for someone to say, I know what it's like, that just hit me very powerfully when you said that. I'm imagining how that must have felt to you.
Well, and there's, it's funny, throughout the history of medicine, there was a time when doctors really, truly, science hadn't come along yet, hadn't really gotten serious. It wasn't until the late 1800s that we even discovered what bacteria were. Never mind antibiotics and never mind understanding cancer and all of that. But so a lot of it, all they could do was be empathetic, which is valuable. Then medicine became scientific. That was incredibly important, but there was a bit of a backlash. And it got to the point where a lot of people, and I've had this said to my face after a speech, a lot of people would say that the only thing that matters is the science. Right? And there's, it is in reality imbalance. And a key mistake there was, excuse me, is that your exalted opinion on Mount Olympus, or have you talked to patients about that? The sick people that you're committed to serving. So anyway, I asked the patients, they said, there is no sure cure. This was back in 2007. There's only one medicine that sometimes works, and most people it has no effect on. And if it does affect you, then sometimes the side effects will kill you. All right. But here I am. I didn't have the choice of saying, I'd like to step out of this game, right?
Yes.
I'd like to leave the casino. So what do you do? Well, I thought, okay, this is it. I was 56 at the time. I was not interested in dying yet. And so I said, I'll try it. But then I said to the oncology team, so I've heard that the side effects can kill you. And they were surprised because they're not accustomed to a patient knowing that. I mean, it's buried in the fine print. I know my head might fall off. I might get diarrhea. I might die and all that. You sign up. So, but they said yes. But we'll do everything we can to help you survive. I surprised them by saying, so what can I do to prepare?
Great.
And here we are, one of the world's best centers for this disease, and they had never heard a patient ask that. So without me ever knowing what an empowered patient was, I was being one. See, here's the essence of it. A disempowered person says, there's nothing I can do, right? That's powerless.
Right.
Right? An empowered person thinks, okay, so what's important to me? And what can I do to move toward that? So I asked, and they said they didn't have any particular advice. So having first asked the doctors, I then turned to the patient community, and I heard back from 16 people who had survived this treatment and were not dead.
Wow.
And so they had been through the side effects. So here I am thinking, according to the statistics, there's something like 5-year survival for this disease on average is like 3% or something. And here I'm talking to people who had it 10 years ago and they're not dead. So I was like, it's not crazy for me to be trying.
Yes.
So, and long story short, once we got into the treatment and the side effects hit, for everyone that hit me, I knew what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I had some idea of what was going on. Now, this is important because paternal health care, paternalism by definition, is exactly the way you treat a little kid who doesn't know how to stay safe. Right? No, honey, don't touch the stove. You'll hurt yourself.
Right.
Right. And the little kid has no ability to comprehend. All they know to do is follow instructions. Well, some doctors will paternally think, why should I scare a patient telling them about a problem that might not happen? Exactly as you might do with a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old. You wouldn't say to a 1-year-old, I've got to explain to you, something bad might happen here that you won't understand.
Right.
So anyway, my several years later, when this whole movement had gotten publicity, the British Medical Journal, the BMJ, asked me to tell my story, which that by itself was like, what? Are you guys nuts? Because I didn't go to them. They came to me, but they saw something big was happening here, and they wanted other doctors to know about this. So I turned to my oncologist and said, what would you want other doctors to know about me acting this way? So here I was thinking, what do I want? I want to alter the culture of healthcare so that both patients and doctors realize that there can be a partnership here, right? And so I thought this article is going to get read by many, many doctors. So I asked my doctor to speak to them, and he said, you were really sick, and I don't know if you could have tolerated enough medicine if you hadn't been so prepared.
Wow. What an interesting insight. Huh.
All right. So he was saying he doesn't know if I'd be alive today.
Right.
If I hadn't. Here's what happens when the culture really shifts. At my 5-year, cancer, 5 years out is when they stop tracking you, having follow-up visits.
Okay.
At my 5-year follow-up visit, they did two things. First, they presented me with a little booklet that they had developed of what to expect from the side effects of these treatments.
Nice.
So that was the doctors learning from patients.
Yes. Yes.
Well, and then they started doing every year a free patient symposium for kidney cancer. The one this year is going to be in December. It is free. If anybody wants, I'll send you a link.
Great.
It's in person in Boston, but then also virtual. And you can submit questions in advance, because what they want to do is answer our questions. They take patient suggestions for what should the topics be. And that all came out of this exchange of stuff. So, I mean, who would have thought that a random guy in Nashua, New Hampshire with a big mouse would end up being a connection between those patients and the best center in the world for kidney cancer?
Just amazing.
I don't even remember how we got started on that. Yeah, you asked for a short version of my story.
No, this is fantastic. What I do want to drop this, we're going to have your full TED Talk linked in the comments. So people definitely should go check it out, because, you know, whether it's themselves, their future health, anyone they care about, I mean, it really is, to your point, such an empowering thing to learn and understand, and a real movement that you've been a part of, which I'm so grateful for.
Thinking of that, there's one tip I want to drop in here.
Okay.
I wrote a tiny book back in 2013 called Let Patients Help.
Yes.
Right. And the idea there is not patients know better than doctors. It's not medicine killed my mother. It's a separate subject. It's and one tip in there is, how do you set the ground rules or the baseline or the expectations for a relationship with the doctor?
Yes.
Right. Because many of them have been taught, and some of them have lived their career this way, others haven't, but a lot of them have been taught the reason you're a doctor is because you know stuff they don't, right? So you ask them questions, you take their answers and tell them what to do. And so so what I do, I have what I call the magic incantation, which is same as when I'm meeting a new business partner, right? I look them in the eye and I say, I'm the kind of patient who likes to understand as much as I can. And I ask some questions, right? And that right away means they're not going to be shocked when I ask a question. I have had, in one case, I had a doctor say to me, a new doctor, I'll ask you questions. And that was that. After that visit, I didn't come back. But, you know, this is not like a business going bankrupt or a marriage divorcing or something like this. It's just, I want a different kind of service provider. That too starts with knowing what's important to you and pursuing it.
I love that you talk about knowing what's important to you, Dave, because I don't know if this resonates with you, but I feel like many of us that have had health challenges, it feels like the system or the doctors or whatever it is kind of sets the agenda for you. And just knowing that you have the ability to just something as simple, not adversarial, but just, hey, I'm the type of person that likes to be involved in my care and ask questions. And what flows from that can be so informative. It doesn't have to be combative, but just setting the tone that you're really on the same team. This isn't an us versus them, you know, and even in your book that you mentioned, I should have gotten it out of my bookshelf to show off to everybody. But I guess my point is this e-patient movement doesn't have to be adversarial or, like you said, anti-science or any of that. There are many ways in which patients and providers can understand each other, right? Because providers are under certain pressures as well. And so the more we understand each other and set those expectations, gosh, what can come from that? There's a lot of goodness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what's on your agenda?
Well, Dave, you know, I sent you, as I do with everybody, kind of the context of this podcast about abundance. And, you know, you had some really good kind of points when we were talking about maybe doing this podcast together, because, you know, I talk to folks all the time who have been on this maybe corporate ladder or this American kind of view of oh, more money is going to make me happy. That's what's going to bring abundance to my life. And I started this podcast to really help people hear from amazing minds like you who have maybe been dealt not a great set of cards, but have made something incredible from it, or who have really dictated the terms in which they want to live their life above and beyond money and found just tremendous satisfaction, connection, and all of these things. So with all that said, I'd love to hear from you what abundance means, especially given what we've talked about so far with your health challenges, the difference that you've made. Have you thought and kind of articulated to yourself what abundance means?
So the truthful answer on that is that decades ago, I crossed paths with these questions.
Okay.
And there are a couple of different ways. One was when I was probably dying.
Yeah.
Right, in 2007. And I will say, until you have actually been in that situation, it's hard to imagine. There's a phenomenal advocate, Grace Cordovano. She's articulate, she's passionate, and she cares about how people's lives are going. And when I was probably dying, and as I still get emotional thinking about this,
Of course.
it's really in your face. Like, am I going to be around next Christmas? Right? And I thought about we'd just been to my father's funeral, and I thought, what's my mom going to look like when she buries her son? Things like that. But then it's like you having the ability to just put that to rest and think, okay, game on. What do we do now?
Yes.
What are my options? And so there was that aspect. But then separate from that, earlier in life, I'd gotten involved in a number of human potential courses where they really got you thinking about who are you? Why are you here?
Yes.
Why are you here on Earth? What will be left after you're gone, other than phenomenal party dude in college, right? What will people? I have stories on that.
Good.
Abundance, baby, in the Woodstock years.
Oh.
But the question, is abundance the opposite of shortage?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really get you there, right? And I'll tell you, a sad part of my life, I was a little kid in the 50s,
Okay.
which was right after World War II. My parents came out of World War II, got married, started raising a family. My mom had 5 kids in 8 years. And and Dad was climbing the ladder. He started out in 1950 as a lineman for the phone company in New York City. And in 1964, he was a vice president of a division at 3M. And so there was a lot of climbing the ladder, moving up. And he had a buddy that they switched companies and kept hiring each other and climbing up. It was great to go from living in a small apartment to living in a bigger house in a nice neighborhood with a lake and a sailboat and all of that. But then it fell apart, and I am not at all opposed to living in a nice house with a sailboat at the lake.
Of course.
But if it doesn't come along with attaining, you can talk people into giving you the money, right? You can't talk people into being what's important to you.
Well said.
And in order for you to attract that to yourself, you have to be clear about what that is that's important to you, or there's no way that you can be a magnet for it. In my case, There was a moment in my 20s when I turned my back on my family because I had a very powerful boss who absolutely convinced me that great things could come to me. And he was talking about material things, money and power. And indeed, my career and my income took off, but I had turned my back on what was actually important to me. And it caught up with me. And I don't want to get psychoanalytical or anything, but the thing that I really, really encourage people to do is think about, I mean, you just have to look inside, but you may have to quiet down the external noise and sense what gives you joy. And on that, I'm going to do a punt thing here.
Okay.
What gives you joy? I'm going to do a Marie Kondo pivot. Okay. We just, because we saved and we're in retirement age now, we were just able to go on our first 2-week vacation to Europe with a river cruise and everything. We came back, and fortunately for us, 3 days later, we discovered there was a leak in a water pipe in the basement. It did not happen while we were gone, hallelujah. But there were a whole bunch of things that were wet and were getting wet. And so we've had drama, and the entire basement barfed out its contents. So we have to go through everything and decide what we want to put in there. But and this is like, do I want to hold on to this for another 20 years or do I want to get rid of it? Right. So that's the Marie Kondo stuff. Right. Good. So for some reason, right in the middle of that, I stumbled across an article that said, well, I got something better for you than Marie Kondo. And for those who don't know, so she says, like, pick this up and say, does this give you joy? If not, get rid of it. Right. Well, this is the poop test. If you pick this up and it had poop on it, would you wash it or throw it away? That's amazing. And there's a whole bunch of things in my life where I wish I'd looked at it that way a long time ago. There is no question that, all right. So I'm not a little kid anymore. I'm a grandfather, right? And there is no question that time spent with my daughter and her daughter and family is just alters my outlook on life. That and visiting with my siblings. And I know I won't be around here 50 years from now, maybe not 30, who knows? Yep. But what inspires me to keep going is the possibility that when I'm gone, the world will have changed in a way that I had something to do with. Now, not everybody is going to feel that way. Right. You know, some people have specific things that are important to them, but that's the point. You know, abundance is to me, is a sort of an inner fullness, right? Where I feel fulfilled. And like along the way in life, I picked up some skills. I picked up some things I like to do, some things I don't like to do. But for me to be self-expressed in the world, right, is what gives me a feeling of abundance. Oh, I appreciate you sharing that so much. I had a previous interview with a woman named Emily Kramer-Gollenkoff. She also lives with, you know Emily. Oh, all right. Yeah, for those who don't know, she also lives with cystic fibrosis. She's a dear friend of mine. I actually met her in a CF community online group. That's how we met. Unfortunately, she doesn't benefit from the miracle CF drug that I have, but she said something so poignant, and I wonder if it resonates with you of, obviously, we don't wish illness, cancer, CF, or anything on anybody, but boy, does it have a remarkable way of helping us really zone in on what really matters, what really brings us abundance, what, you know, when there's limited time or limited energy or resources, boy, do you get crystal clear. And just the ability, what you said of what brings you that fullness, I don't think it necessarily always came from what you said, your cancer journey per se, but
it seems like you've really fine-tuned kind of what that self-examination over time, as opposed to just kind of one realization or dramatic change in your life. Is that right?
So yes, and
Okay.
as they say,
Yes.
partly because I'm later in my years, and partly because as a result, I don't have as much energy as I had when I was 40.
Yes.
Right. I mean, it was not unusual for me to do 2 all-nighters back to back. Right. And, homie can't do that no more. Right. What works with a more limited output of energy is different, and it's when there's a shorter supply of that energy, it's easier to see as a week or a month goes by what mattered,
Right.
what was fulfilling, and so and that's, I mean, disease is sort of like that, right?
So true.
No matter what happens, my wife says I'm just a punk in my humor. There was a comedian, I don't know if it was Robert Klein or who, but back in the days of comedians mostly being seen on late night TV.
Yes.
He said, "I'll tell you, these infomercials, they drive me nuts. They say, lose weight without diet or exercise." I thought, what's that leave? Disease.
Oh,
Right? That's
the only other option. That's funny.
well, and but that it does. Disease will cut down on how much energy and how many, you might think, hours per week, per day, per month you have to actively to be choosing. I'm sure you know about the spoon theory, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Or Christine Miserandino. Is it Miserando?
I think so.
Anyway,
Yeah.
a brilliant, simple metaphor. And if you've only got 3 spoons a day where you used to have 10, you learn which choices make a big difference. And it would be interesting to find out what she thinks about this as well.
Yes. I agree.
Let's see, what's the next questions in
Yes.
here?
Well, the last one really is, Dave, you took something that you experienced that happened to you, and you decided to give back on a big scale. I think you said over 200 talks, over 26 countries, if my memory serves. And, you continue to give back, like appearing on this podcast. What really drove that? Because I think many people would say, gosh, I just want to put that behind me. I beat the odds. I don't want to keep telling this story over and over again. I don't want to keep doing that. What was that part of an abundance kind of thought process? Or I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, I wouldn't go there specifically.
Okay.
There is no question. So I'm an analytical guy.
Yes.
All right. I have sort of an engineering mind.
Mhm.
And it's funny because I was just reviewing this weekend, sort of the origin story of how in the year and a half after my cancer, I was just sort of wandering around. Nobody had ever heard of me, and I didn't have any work to speak of. And I just sort of stumbled into a realization about healthcare. And I tried something and ended up on the front page of the newspaper. Now, this is people have said that if what happened to me was a Hollywood movie, everyone would say, this is not real. This only happens in Hollywood scripts.
Right.
All right. A very short summary of it. So 2007, I almost died and got better. And that Thanksgiving, I started a blog. Woo-hoo. I called it The New Life of Patient Dave. And I started blogging about this and that and the other thing. And then I started to get interested in healthcare just because it had just saved my life.
Mhm.
Right. And I read a few articles and things. Then I discovered that American healthcare is obscenely expensive. right? And so I started, because I like to play with numbers. My wife says I'm a numbers brat. I started trying to comprehend what at that time was $1.4 trillion a year. Then I came to realize, just using business skills from earlier in life, everyone says American healthcare is 50% more expensive than any other country in the world.
Yes.
Right? So I think, what was the exact number? By the time I got around to this, it was $2.4 trillion. So I'm good with arithmetic. If it's 50% more expensive than any other country in the world, then that means a third of that is waste, which is 800 billion. And then I thought, so let's see, what if we could figure out what the problem is and make it disappear?
Yes.
Right? That would be $800 billion of somebody's revenue that didn't exist anymore. And then I thought, let's see, geez, how big is Apple? How big is Microsoft? And it turns out Apple plus Microsoft plus GM plus Ford plus Chrysler plus Intel, and I think that I mentioned IBM, all of those companies combined at that time were $700 billion. So if the healthcare industry instantly became more efficient, there would be that much economic wreckage in the U.S. economy. And that gave me the epiphany. This system is not going to do that easily.
Yes. Yeah.
Therefore, I thought, if we can't expect the system to become more efficient, then maybe our best bet. And it's important. A lot of people rant about how crooked or greedy American healthcare companies are, and maybe some are, maybe aren't, maybe some aren't. But the point is, you don't have to be greedy for this situation to exist. If any company or industry starts heading toward going out of business, they're going to resist.
Yes.
Right? So figured the system's not going to improve in our direction on its own. So I thought our best bet is going to be for us as individuals to collect our health data and start building solutions of our own.
Yes.
And it was because of that I decided there was a thing that way back then called Google Health.
Yes.
That was going to do like Quicken for your financial data, pull it all together. My hospital announced that they were the first one to have a Google Health interface. I tried it, and what came across was garbage. And I couldn't get a straight answer from them, so I blogged about it. And the stuff hit the fan 3 days after, and I had no idea. This is the stuff that Hollywood movies. Yes. I had no idea. This was early 2009. The Obama administration had just started up with the $40 billion of funding to install electronic medical records. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that everybody was talking. My hospital had made a huge mistake in what data they sent to Google. And it turns out that the people planning these EMRs had decided to use the same approach. And my dumb little blog post had exposed this. So the Boston Globe newspaper called 3 days later. So here's a blogger in his recliner. The phone rings. It's the newspaper. We think this is important. They didn't just write about it. They put it on the front page. Wow. And I started getting invited to policy meetings in Washington, D.C.
Love it.
And then I started getting invited to give speeches. And the first speech conference that invited me, they needed to know what's going to be the title of your speech. I'd never been asked that. So the fourth time the guy asked, I said, I don't know, just call it, give me my damn data, because you can't be trusted. And as you know, that ended up in the TED Talk, and it became a rap.
A mural? A woman painted their damned data? Yep.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Regina Holiday, yeah.
Yes.
So be who you are, I think. And that's, and it may take a few tries, because you may guess and then say, no, that didn't work. I thought, like my dad, I'm going to be a ladder climber, right? And then it turned out that broke a number of things. And what moves me is finding a way to help people see things in a new way so that complicated problems become clearer. All right. And that's who I am. And the ability to express that in my work is what lights me up.
Perfection.
So,
Perfection. So what I'm hearing is you're staying true to yourself and what matters to you. You're asking
and
questions.
you have to discover it.
Yes.
It's not like I'm going to look in my armpit and find a piece of paper.
Armpit's a perfect place, though, Dave. I like that. And we should all look there first. But you're asking questions. You're doing it respectfully. This day and age where discourse is so, angry and whatever, you give the example of being polite while also, still being inquisitive, following what you're passionate about. And then, gosh, being willing to give back and help others. I know there a DM conversation you and I had a while ago before we even set this up. You encouraged me to figure out how to give back, given my unique story. And I just love that mindset. Imagine what a country and a world we would have if people followed these principles that I think you're a great example of.
Well, and it's very definitely, and this is a skill that not everyone finds easy. By far the easiest way to help people see things newly is to ask a question that is crafted to get them to think what's going on here so that they reach the conclusion themselves rather than you saying, yo, Pat.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Read this.
Yes. Yeah. Making it, I love that.
If they make the realization, then they own it. All right. And they may take it in a direction you didn't think, but if everybody in the world was thinking on their own and trying to figure out what's going on instead of listening to the latest rant, it'd be a different world.
On that note, Dave, thank you again so much. Just on behalf of everyone, my own personal journey, the countless people that you've impacted. This is so inspiring. I can't wait to re-listen to this episode several times personally. Thank you again for sharing your talents, your brilliant mind, and your time with us. It means so much, and you're going to be encouraging just so many people here.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Real quick before we go, what's the best way for people to reach out to you in case they want to be in touch or?
Well, I worked in marketing a long time ago, so I really believe in simple and consistent branding.
Okay.
So here I am. I have this nickname, ePatient Dave, where the E is for empowered, engaged, equipped, enabled, and all that. So my website is epatientdave.com. And because I'm also a bugger for usability, on that page, on that website, there is a contact page. And guess what's there? It's my actual email address and phone number. It's how to contact me.
Wow.
I've had people hiring me for a speech, call and they say, Dave, am I actually talking to you? Yeah, I put my phone there. Yeah. Yes.
Phenomenal. Wonderful. Well, thank you again. Audience, thank you for joining us today. And we will talk to you on our next episode.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights that will empower you on your journey towards abundance. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us, and it helps others discover the secrets to an abundant life too. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn, Amy Silvis. Keep striving for your goals, nurturing your relationships, and embracing the adventure that is life. Until next time, we wish you an abundantly fulfilling day.